Alrighty, welcome back, everyone. We just talked about some quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers to watch throughout this week at the Combine. And now it's time to talk about some takeaways from the Combine. We had some people working out. The D linemen and linebackers went through their on field workouts yesterday, the 40-yard dash, uh, vertical jump, broad jump. We had three cone drills. We had tons of different stuff to pull from and tons of cool numbers. But before I jump into this, I do want to remind everyone that this is just the NFL Combine. These are just numbers. A lot of the decisions that people have on these kids has been decided because they've seen tons of tape and they've seen tons of what they need to see. But it's always fun to look at some really incredible numbers, and man, we had a ton. Let's start with the guy that might have made the most money of anyone yesterday, and Brayden Fiske from Florida State, defensive tackle that was a huge part of their season, was super disruptive in that ACC championship game where they absolutely needed him. He ran a 4.7840, a 10-yard split of 168, so just incredible get off, remarkable speed. He had the top vert as well for defensive tackles. He's just remarkably explosive, remarkably fast. Seeing him go through workouts, he was getting around bags so much faster. So his ability to get low to the ground is pretty remarkable, and he's someone that could play some type of defensive tackle, defensive end hybrid role because, man, that dude is athletic. Another guy that absolutely showed out is Rook Ororo. I apologize if I got that wrong. I believe I got it right, but it was on full display because his athletic ability is off the charts. He was in the top five, I think, in pretty much everything. He was a 4.9 40-yard dash, and when you're that big, that is incredibly fast. He was fourth in that 40 times, second in the 10-yard split, which is huge for defensive tackles and defensive linemen overall. Third in vert and second in broad jump. So the dude was just an athletic freak all day, and there have been a ton of guys that were athletic freaks all day. Another guy that everyone was talking about was Tavondre Sweat, the defensive tackle out of Texas. And a big question mark coming into this was what was he going to weigh in at? He did not weigh during the Senior Bowl, but he came in at 366. He played last season at Texas at 365. So teams had to feel really, really good about that. Had to feel like, at least he's sticking at that weight because if you watched him last year, he can play at that weight. That's no problem for him. But his 40 time is a 5.27. And that sounds like not that interesting of a number, but at 366 pounds, it's a very interesting number. I can't believe that someone that big can move that fast. In fact, there was another defensive tackle, I believe Dominic McKinley from Texas A&M, is around 320 and ran roughly the same time. So just to give you an idea of how incredibly fast he was moving, Tamondre Sweat is just an absolute athletic freak. He did everything that he had to do yesterday to keep his position, which is likely somewhere mid to late second round for the most part. And then the guy that everyone's talking about with defensive tackles is Byron Murphy. This guy got praise all over the NFL world yesterday. I saw Matt Miller had him, I believe, going into this process as 13th in his big board, so all of the prospects ranked, and he thought that might be too low after what he showed yesterday. The dude he did everything remarkably well. I think he ran a 4.88 40, was in the top five, and vertical jump was in the top five, and pretty much everything. So this dude did everything you wanted him to do, and then in the on-field workouts, the 4-bag drill, the 3-cone, all of that type of stuff. His ability to turn and get low to the ground is pretty remarkable. Even Cam Jordan was on the broadcast and gave him praise when he was going through that 4-bag workout because the dude is just an athletic freak. So I think he did everything that you could have asked him. I think he is locked in as the top defensive tackle in this draft, and wherever he goes, I think they're going to be very, very happy. And then one guy that I talked about a little bit leading up to this was Mason Smith. he showed his athletic ability. There's no two ways about that. He showed that he has a super high ceiling, and if given the right situation to develop, he could be a game wrecker, honestly. I thought he could have gone back to LSU for one more year and possibly even been a first-round pick this upcoming year. But at the end of the day, I think he will get drafted probably on the second day sometime. And I think as long as he's in a position to get developed by a really good coach, I think he could be an absolute game wrecker. So very excited to see what he can do. And then defensive ends have just so many guys. I can't even. It's just insane how many dudes. Let's start with some guys that jumped off the page that you might have not expected. Mekhi Wingo from LSU, Dwayne Carter from Duke, and then we talked about it earlier this week. Darius Robinson from Missouri. All had incredible RAS scores, which is raw athletic score. So all of these guys were just showing off what they're capable of, showing off their high ceiling, and showing off their remarkable ability. So all those guys, I think, did wonders for themselves, at least to help them, move up a couple of spots here and there throughout the draft period. And then you get into the big boys of this edge class, and that is Chop Robinson, Jared Verse, Liatu Latu, and Dallas Turner. Those guys are the ones setting the pace. More Verse, Latu, and Turner, but Chop Robinson did a ton yesterday. Ran a 4.48, which was one of the fastest. I shouldn't say the fastest because Dallas Turner beat him, but one of the fastest of the edge rushers. And that's honestly going to be faster than some running backs and wide receivers. So just an absolute freak of nature, can do so many different things. And I think much like a guy like Mason Smith, obviously Chop Robinson has a little bit more under his belt than Mason Smith does, but I think if you put him in the right situation and let him develop into who he can be, man, this guy could resemble another Penn State grad that is tearing up the league in Michael Parsons right now. So very excited to see what he can do. Jared Verse, his numbers this year were eerily similar to Will Anderson's a year ago. 4.6 40-yard dash, literally exactly the same. They're roughly the same size. Very similar, and I think it could be that Jared Verse has the same fate as Will Anderson a year ago, where he ends up being defensive end number one, because that's kind of where I have him at this moment. But another guy that's right up there is Liatu Latu. Didn't necessarily have the best measurables day in the grand scheme of things, but as we talked about at the beginning, the measurables can only mean so much. There is so much good tape on this kid, but on the on-field drills, he really showed out, and that's kind of what is the big deal, right? I mean, you got to show your on-field ability, and he was able to do that. And if you watch tape on this kid, it's obvious he is one of, if not the best edge rusher in this class. And then let's talk about the athletic freak of the group in Dallas Turner. My lord, this kid is off the charts in most of this stuff. He had 40.5-inch vert, which is better than some NBA players, and I'm not even lying. He had a 4.47 40, which is stupid. He basically did every athletic thing that you can think of. He was right there at the top for all of them. He genuinely might be the most athletic guy in the entire draft, regardless of position. So tons to really like with him. And then let's get into some guys that you might not have heard the names of, but really showed out yesterday and showed what their ability is about. Muhammad Kamara is a fantastic edge rusher, I believe from Colorado State. I could be mistaken there, but most likely a later round pick, but he really showed his athletic ability. Adisa Isaac from Penn State is another guy that did that as well. Cedric Johnson from Ole Miss was remarkable in most of the measurables throughout the day. Javonte Jean-Baptiste from Notre Dame and previously Ohio State was very impressive with the on-field workouts yesterday. Both may be under the radar, but gives you an idea of how freaky this edge class is. And then three guys totally off the beaten path are Eric Watts from Connecticut, Miles Cole from Texas Tech, and then Jalix Hunt from Houston Christian. All put up really, really good numbers. So I think all of those guys, at the very least put themselves on the radar of some of these teams. And Miles Cole, I believe, is going to be drafted almost no matter what because he's high enough on the list. But guys like Eric Watson, Jalynx Hunt have to feel great about what they were able to show at the Combine yesterday. But this D-line class is just insane. I can't remember a D-line class that was quite as great as this one. And there's so many different body types, play styles. Literally every team in the NFL should want some of these guys, if not multiple of these guys, because, man, can they go. And then let's get to linebackers. And the guy that really set the pace at the 40-yard dash was Peyton Wilson. He ran a 4.44. Just insane athletic ability from that guy. The worry, obviously, is his injury history, but his ability is obvious. I don't think that's at all a worry. The worry is obviously availability. So there will be, it'll be interesting to see what happened during his physicals and his medical tests. But at the end of the day, if you're looking for a kid that can play football, Peyton Wilson is right up there with the best of them. Edrin Cooper, another guy. He showed why he might be the best linebacker in the entire draft, was towards the top of pretty much every single metric. Another guy that I talked about earlier in the week that was towards the top was Trevin Wallace. Showed off his remarkable athletic ability that I had talked about. Dude can absolutely fly and do a number of things really, really well. So he was someone that I think definitely moved up a couple of draft boards yesterday. Kalen DeLoach showed up big, another Florida State guy that had a great day. We're in a 4.47 on the 40, which is just incredible. Could be kind of a hybrid linebacker, edge rusher type guy, so it'll be interesting to see how teams use him. But Florida State had a great day between Jared Verse, Brayden Fiske, and Kalen DeLoach. They had quite the day between for their defensive guys. And then a couple other guys that had great days is Edefuan Ulafosio. I did my best. I apologize if I butchered that. But he had a very, very good day, a very productive guy in college coming out of Washington, and he definitely turned some heads. He did some things that were really remarkable on the field, and I think there are a lot of people that are looking at him in slightly different light today than they were a day ago. And then a guy a little bit off the beaten path was Jordan McGee. He showed up just everywhere, across every single metric. I think he was in the top 5. He's coming from Temple. I think he was going to be, probably a third-day draft pick, and he probably still will be, but there's a big difference between getting that call early in the day when it's the 4th round and then as opposed to waiting until the 6th or 7th to get that call. So I think he definitely moved up the board and helped his draft status a ton yesterday. So tons of guys to watch for. This is a remarkable defensive line class, a really, really solid linebacker class with tons of very fun guys to watch and tons of guys that a little bit off the beaten path that have made a ton of money. But that will do it for this edition of the GSMC College Football Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a ton to us, so please remember to subscribe to the channel and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference for us. Also, we invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or X, TikTok, Instagram for all of the content, all of the updates across all sports, not just college football. So if you're an NBA fan, if you're an NFL fan, if you're an MLB fan, whatever it is, we have it covered on our channel, so definitely subscribe there to see all of the updates across the sporting world. But thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you Monday.
Let's go.